And Senator Kaine?
Thank you for hosting this hearing. It's really important, and I think I'll hopscotch around a little bit because there's so many different topics. I think it's at the end of this week, maybe the day after tomorrow, that France, Germany, and Britain are going to meet with Iran and Turkey to talk about the imposition of snapback sanctions under the JCPOA for Iran's bad activity. I view that as a positive that these three European nations are considering the imposition of snapback sanctions. Would you generally agree with that?
Senator, I do agree. I think it's very important that leverage be used to try to move Iran in the direction we need them to go, which is to relinquish their highly enriched uranium and their any residual enrichment capability. I believe those meetings are coordinated between the Europeans and Secretary Rubio, as they really need to be, because the Europeans are the ones who hold that key, and that needs to be a partnership.
And again, we don't know the outcome of these, so the proof's in the pudding. But do Ms. Culbertson, Mr. Hook, do you generally agree these allies trying to use the tools of the JCPOA to snap back sanctions could be effective leverage?
Yeah, I supported snapback in 2019, 2020, because we believed that Iran was in sufficient breach of its nuclear obligations that it justified triggering snapback sanctions. The E3 were not with us then. I am very heartened to see them with us now. I think that...
Had we already pulled out of the JCPOA in 2019?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a little bit hard to convince them to, use the JCPOA when we had backed away from the table. But it is, and I agree with you, it would have been better had they done it earlier. But at least it is a tool. So we'll cross our fingers that maybe
Agreed.
The discussions might be helpful. A couple of you just mentioned, but really didn't give us a report on Iraq. What's going on in Iraq right now? So as Iranian influence is weakened with Syria, the Hezbollah being weakened, the Houthis they're sort of weakened, but sort of maybe sitting back and waiting. But what's going on in Iraq? Has the Iranian weakening weakened their hold in Iraq, or is that still something that the committee needs to pay a lot of attention to?
Iranian weakening is evident in Iraq. I think we can see this in the muted response from the Iranian-backed militias during the recent fighting between Israel and Iran. It seems that the younger generations in particular want something different in their future rather than increased fighting, and they also recognize their weaker position and inability to be as effective as that could be. And so therefore, they're becoming more and more engaged in interest in domestic affairs. Iraq's prime minister has been somewhat effective in keeping stability and starting improvements on better development of public services in the economy, and there's momentum there that merits U.S. support to continue in that direction.
Please.
If I could just add, Senator, during the Biden administration, we negotiated with Iraq a 2-year transition of Operation Inherent Resolve, our counter-ISIS mission, with the ability to extend that further by mutual agreement. And so I think it's something I hope the administration will turn to, since the Iraqi Shia militias have largely been deterred from additional attacks against U.S. forces after some early attacks in the first months of the war. I think there's a good opportunity to find a more stable basis to maintain a U.S. presence that supports the Iraqi security forces continuing the counter-ISIS mission, provides some reassurance to our Kurdish partners, and also gives us a presence, quite limited presence, but a presence that nevertheless allows us to balance Iranian influence and compete with them.
Let me ask this. With Hezbollah weakened, how important is it that the United States continue to support the Lebanese armed forces?
It's critical. The Lebanese armed forces are the state institution that has the legitimacy for maintaining the means of force, and the United States is now quite invested, first from the end of the Biden administration and into the beginning of the Trump administration, to help this new Lebanese government, the president, who's the former commander of the Lebanese armed forces, and prime minister, really build up their capabilities. But critically, it's going to have to include disarmament, complete disarmament of Hezbollah, which is not a completed process just yet.
Let me just say, as I hand it back, Mr. Hook talked about anti-Semitism at home and abroad, and it's very, very serious from whatever direction it comes. We had a hearing yesterday with the president's nominee to be ambassador to Belgium, and we didn't have huge attendance at the moment I was asking him questions, but I pointed out that he was reposting material from a Belgian far-right leader who had been convicted and imprisoned for Holocaust denial and other offenses that were sort of in the anti-Semitism space. When we get to a business committee markup on this individual, I'll present that material when all of us are around the table, because again, whether it's from the left or the right, or whether it's in this country or somewhere else in the world, we got to take it seriously. I yield back. Thank you for allowing me to jump ahead.